There's a book by Tim Grover called Relentless. Yeah. So I read his book and I felt like one of the big takeaways I had was he basically said, you have to sacrifice a lot of these things if you want to be the best. If you want to be like Michael Jordan, like if you look at, and as a dad lens, I feel like his marriage sucked. I don't know necessarily how he was with his kids. He didn't talk about it too much, but it was like he was all in on being the best basketball player.
Right.
And I do not want to be that guy who's, you know what, I'm just going to have to sacrifice my marriage for a little bit to make money. I don't want to do that. Now, if I'd say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice my business to be like the best dad, I'm way more okay with that. Like,
Sure.
Great, we'll be poor, but I'll have a great family. So anyway, I feel like, is there a world where you can have both? Can you be rich?
Well, yeah. Something that really stood out to me, be selfish in the morning so that you could be selfless throughout the rest of the day. And that's really, dude, something like, it's something that I'm digging in and doubling down on to an extent of like, hey, I need my me time from 4 to 7 so that I can give to my family, so that I can give to, what my financial aspirations.
Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best. Danny Baylis. Hey, how are you today?
I'm doing well, my man. No complaints. Happy to be on the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you for contacting me. Danny, I met you through LinkedIn and we have some mutual friends, but It's been a pleasure just to connect with you and really appreciate your heart for what we're talking about today, which is going to be dad stuff, of course, Invested Fathers, but you bring a unique background from your real estate active roles as well as some of your just passive roles. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your business?
Yeah, I'll give you my LinkedIn tagline. So I am a Christian. I'm a husband of my wife of 2 years. I'm a father of 2 children. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-week-old. I am a technology cybersecurity professional, and I'm also a real estate investor. And candidly speaking, I am that in that order. I've been involved in real estate now for over 10 plus years. It's always been something that I've just been so attracted and invested into, starting off from more so of an active role of single family fix and flips, turning into single family rentals, and slowly but surely building my expertise and I would call it business model to go after larger apartment properties, both as a general property owner, owning around 100 units here in Chicagoland, Midwest, as well as a passive investor in some larger assets, primarily in the Sunbelt states.
Wow. What jumped out to me from that was you have a 6-week-old. Congratulations.
I'll be honest, the game really starts when the 2 kids come. So one, I was at a point where you get in your group, and then 2, hey, it's the greatest blessing ever, but it's a whole new dynamic. It's now man-on-man defense. I've always been a morning person, and it's funny how my morning routine has slightly changed. I used to be a 5 a.m. wake-up call person. The 2 added, now I'm a 4 a.m. wake-up call person. So, hey, change, but it's all great, and it's all a blessing.
Amen. And I appreciate the way you said that the order at which you listed those things is the order of importance in regards to your faith, your roles as dad, husband, and then the business kind of came afterwards. Because that's what the show is really all about. It's finding out what are the values that we can instill, not just for us, but as a legacy for our kids. And your kids are super young. This shows that you are actively, intentionally thinking, what can I instill now so that as they start picking up things from you.
I think where some people get it wrong is they're putting their identity in their work, and they view themselves as, whether it's a successful tech salesperson or, oh, you know what, if I only had this much more, if I got the next promotion. They're putting their identity in their work. And I live off of a 5F value framework. It's really, I want to be Christ-centered in my faith, in my family, in my fitness/health, in my finances, including real estate, as well as my friends. So that's really a pivot that I've had 2 years ago is, while I want to excel in real estate, while I want to excel in my financial aspirations and my roles, where my identity is, it's in Christ. It's as a husband and as a father first. And I think if you get the house right, other things will start to fall in place for you.
Amen. Totally agree. Starts there. And I would even say that we just went through a big election here. I'm a big believer in get the household in order and then start there and go to your neighborhood. When we start thinking about the scariness of the White House and who's going to lead us here and how are these things all going to be sad and horrible, doom and gloom, let's just go here. So start local.
Well, it's funny. So I actually posted on LinkedIn yesterday. I'm looking at the post because yes, I have felt that. And what I posted yesterday, a reminder after last night's election results. If your candidate did not win, it's not the end of the world. If your candidate did win, they won't single-handedly create your success. Ultimately, it's up to each of us to define our path and build our own future. And that's really what makes America so great. So there's a component of controlling the controllables, of truly being in control of your own destiny. And I'd say trying to silence the outside noise. So yeah, I totally relate, and certainly timely of this podcast, obviously 2 days after the election results.
You gave me a quick timeline on those 5Fs on when you started it. I think you said 2 years ago. I've been diving back into sort of life mission, life values. I hired a life coach.
Nice.
To get more of what you're saying solidified for me. What was it that got you into those 5Fs? Is it something you thought, hey, let's do this? Or did someone coach you into that?
To me, I look at it from a standpoint of where there is no vision, people perish. And I've always had a high motor. I've always been a hardworking person. But then when you look back, when you really think about what do you want your legacy to look like? Okay, so you're a hardworking person. What does that actually mean in a greater picture? I created my 5F framework because I started from a 3-year vision. How my brain operates, I have a 3-year vision of what I want my life to look like in those 5 F categories. Outside of that, I go and create 1-year annual goals. I break them down into quarterly milestones and then weekly KPIs. So I think you could do this from a real estate standpoint of, okay, how do I get to XYZ in monthly passive income? And I think where people get tripped up is it's not always when they're stalled or stuck. It's not always laziness, lack of ambition. It truly is a lack of vision and a lack of direction. And I think once you get that direction, once you get that vision, that's where wheels start to get in motion. But when you don't have that, you're just scrambling all over the place. And then in return, there's some of us that just end up kind of sitting. It's a fine spot to be. Everyone's got to start somewhere. But I got this from going and building out a 3-year vision of what I want my professional life, my personal life, my faith, and who I want to be to look like.
Cool. I feel like you start talking goals, and it's maybe good to have that North Star of the 50-year vision or what they call it, big, hairy, audacious goal. That's one way to do it. But for our audience today, I think if we can start with that ending goal for 3 years, then 1 year, and then quarters, and then weeks, I love that.
Yeah.
And it takes some time to build that. It's not like you think of it on the way home. I don't know how long it took you, but getting that set up, you also brought to light, it's not a lack of effort or resources. It's a lack of vision, maybe, of why you're not reaching your goals. Wow. I think that's a bomb drop right there.
I'm building out my 2025 template that I'm hoping to share with my community of both tech resources, dads, people interested in real estate. That's what I'm going to do for you, Kenny. I'll share it with you, and hopefully it gives you some direction as well, because sometimes the template is what we need, right? So whether, again, parenting, real estate, whatever that might be, it's okay, here's the template, here's the box that I'm going to play in. And this is how I'm going to go attack my vision, my goals based on this template.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny. And if I so decide, I may share it with others, but I'll definitely take that for me first.
Yeah, certainly.
So I think where I want to go now is, before we hit record, we have talked a little bit about the real estate, and you gave me your heart on what you discovered through being an active investor versus a passive investor. Are we starting a business here, or are we trying to be an investor?
Right.
Tell me some things in regards to like, hey, this is how I started mindset wise, and this is where I am today.
So I live in the Chicagoland area. And when I speak to most of my friends and people in the tech space, when they talk to me and they want to get involved into real estate, their instant approach is, maybe I go rent out my condo. Maybe I buy an Airbnb. Maybe I go buy a 2-flat, a 3-flat, or a single family rental. All those are fine options. And as I mentioned, I've done single family fix and flips. I've had small rentals, but I try and walk people through a framework. And I'd say the first question that comes to mind is, are you looking to be a landlord and really start a business that's in real estate? Or are you looking to be an investor? And there's two totally different swim lanes, because I've done both of them. So my perspective is, I think that's a good spot to start. Is a lot of us think, I'm going to go be active in real estate and I want to go buy and manage properties. I'd actually challenge you to consider whether you want to go down this path or not. Go be a limited investor. Go work with operators that are doing this full time, that have a large portfolio, that are experienced, that are going after great assets. Go learn from them. And then from there, that's something that you choose. That's something that you're really interested in. But I think that there's so much value in going and learning from experienced operators in a limited capacity role, as opposed to just going and buying a single family or smaller property and kind of doing A to Z, from renovations, landlord, property management, and all those facets of owning real estate.
I think it's so powerful, Danny, that you can say that. It's something that I've been somewhat preaching on this show, but it's very validating for me, as you're someone in a completely different market, completely different walk of life. You have kids at different ages, and we have come to the same conclusion. Now, you started as an active investor. Is that right? Like, you were curious. You were like, I'm going to buy fix and flips. I'm going to do this. Or were you doing both?
I started as an active investor. I think I was 24. I bought a $120,000 townhome. Fixed and flipped it. Was there almost every day after my demanding W-2 tech job. And I think maybe I made like 10 grand in 6 months. Everything went wrong. You have your holding costs, and you learn. And, and you and I learn a ton. Progress over perfection. And I got to a point where I had some really fix and flips and learned that business as well. But it all goes back down to, especially as now a dad, to what is the best use of my time? While I might not quite have that ceiling of being a general property owner and really running the day to day, I also have peace of mind of a fully passive platform so that I could go and spend my time with my family, go and double down trying to increase my active income and not be boggled down by being a landlord. So I think what is the best use of my time is a really good question for us all to consider.
You mentioned you started at 24. When did you get married?
I got married at 31.
Okay.
3 years now. Yeah.
And because this is what happened to me, I turned 30. I had a son who was 3.
Yep.
And that was the turning point for me. I felt like there was this sense of I'm already not seeing him a lot. As the family grew, I started evaluating, asking myself that question more and more. So was that the trigger for you in regards to like answering that question for you? What is my time worth? You're like, I'm looking at my 5Fs, looking at my marriage, looking at my son. I really want to be around more. This is the why for me.
Yeah, I'd say to me, I've always been open to trying something out. So my first investment from a limited capacity, it was in Arizona, and I took a flyer on a property that made sense to me from a very high level overview. When I really looked at the returns were very similar to some of the properties that I have here in Chicago that are smaller, yet I spent significantly less time. I really didn't have any stress. I got a monthly report, and I also learned from experienced operators as well. So I think what made the lights go off is taking that first step, investing in a limited capacity, limited partnership opportunity on a large scale asset, and looking at those return metrics. They were very similar to some other properties that I'm more so actively managing to this day.
Yeah.
So,
okay, let's go to the fatherhood stuff because you've laid out the 5Fs.
yeah.
And some of these concepts that you've talked about, these values, time, money working for you.
Right.
Dadhood is like front and center. Obviously, the 6-week-old is one form of fathering in regards to just helping your wife and loving this little baby. 2-year-old's getting older. What are some things you're working on right now in that realm? I don't know if you want to just give us like your 3-year vision, 1-year vision, weekly stuff, but would you mind sharing some of those things with us?
Sure. In short, what I'm really working on is being fully present. So I have a practice right now where, am I 100% perfect at it? No. From 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., I put my phone away. And I think where, especially in this world that we live in now, where everyone's working from home, we don't turn off. And then we just have a blended where we're somewhat working all day, yet we aren't really fully present with our families. And one thing that I'm working on is time blocking. So I have this quote that I shared with you: go be selfish in the morning so that you could be selfless throughout the rest of the day. And what I mean by that is I do want to be selfless in providing for my family from 7:30 to 5 p.m. Yet, in my opinion, the most important time for fathers is that 5-ish p.m. to 8 p.m. time slot. It's not from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. because that's really the why of what we're looking to do. We're looking to provide for our family, but don't get so caught up trying to create a living that you forget to have a life, be present with your family and your wife and your children.
So when you say, and I will echo all that. That's some really cool. I've never heard the 8 to 5 is less important than the 5 to 8. If we're just putting generic times, I know everyone has their own schedule, but I think that can resonate with a lot of dads. And the practicality, I feel like, is very helpful in regards to just put your phone away from 5:30 to 7:30. I think I hear the be present, want to be present. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it maybe is said, it's almost like, what does that mean? It's where my mind is. So I just feel what that means is I'm not looking at my phone. And I can't look at my phone. It's literally not even an option for me. And I've recently started this. We do bath time with my 3-year-old. And is she looking at me the whole time? No. So I'll go in the corner and check stuff. And if she sees me, great. It's not like she's like mad at me if I'm not. But sometimes I'm just like, why? Maybe use this opportunity to make her laugh or get my head wet with her, like whatever it is. And instead of just, and I don't think, I'm not trying to put a guilt chip on anybody here, but there's opportunities that I think we can capitalize on in that window.
And it goes down to like, it's not about beating ourselves up. We aren't perfect parents, right? So I think it just goes down to awareness of your time with your children. Because if you aren't intentional about it, to your point, you just end up, hey, we're in the same room. My child's playing, but am I actually the father that my child needs and that I desire to be? So it's an intentionality that has been really powerful for me.
Yeah. And I also want to ask about the selfishness of your morning. And I think that's an interesting way you describe it because selfish has a negative connotation. But hey, if I'm going to be selfish, I'm going to be selfish between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. Tell us define more of that for what that looks like.
So I view it, you could call it selfish, but really it's my only me time. So what that looks like for me is I start my day in scripture and prayer to get centered on really what's most important to me. So I'll start off with that, hitting my faith bucket. Then I go down to getting in a workout every day. I'm doing this lunge challenge with my buddy right now. So I'll get my workout in. That it's my fitness bucket. Following that, it's really prep for the day. It's getting ready, kind of understanding what's most important for me. But that's me time where I'm not getting text messages, emails, helping out with my children yet. So it's really, I think the Miracle Morning is a very popular book. It's time for me to get centered and ready for the day so that I could go be selfless with my career and with my family.
Yeah. It's so funny. When I was like in my late 20s, I'd hear these older guys, keep getting up earlier and earlier. And it's so, as you just get older, you just get up earlier and you think you're good for getting up at 5 and then you find someone who's before. That's the next level.
Also, it's not, hey, we aren't robots either. Right. We're humans. So I think I woke up at 4:30 today. I'm not beating myself up. It again goes back down to that intentionality, the man that you want to be for your family. And that's been something that's really helped me out.
Can you think of a story that has encapsulated that a little bit? I mentioned like the bath time routine, but are there something that you failed in to not be the man that you like, man, this was a lesson I learned the hard way, or like a recent victory where you were like, putting these reps finally paid off. This is what happened.
Yeah. From a fatherhood perspective, one thing that is very important to me. So my 2-year-old, he started going to church with me, probably about 6 months ago. And when we started that journey, it was kicking, screaming. He was not having it. Now, every night before dinner, and again, he's 2 years old, we get to pray. We pray before nighttime. We read a little kid's Bible story as well. And he loves going to church with me. And to me, as a parent, it's easy to say, I want my children to be successful at sports. I want my children to be successful financially. Those aren't bad things. Those are normal. But what's most important to me is I want my child to have a relationship with Jesus. I feel like it's never too early to plant seeds in your children's life of letting them know God and create the right type of values in their lives. That's been a win that I'm really excited about. And it's great to see him also have excitement and going to church with me and continuing to learn.
Love that reflection moment. And it's cool to see the progression from, not that he will never be kicking, screaming, crying baby, going to church, but how it was scary, new, didn't like it. And now he, after some time, likes going, it sounds like. I had this conversation with my wife last night, actually, more or less how our faith comes out in our days with our kids,
Sure.
and how sometimes confusing it must be for us to say these things about Jesus or God or our faith, but then how we act is worry and gossip or anger, like they don't line up. And how hard that must be for a 5-year-old to look at mom and dad
Right.
and say, wait, are they trying to brainwash me here? Like, they're saying these things, they're praying this way, but so just that idea of, and I think you mentioned we're not perfect dads.
Yeah.
We're not perfect people. Like, we're sinners and we're going to mess up and we're going to yell and we're going to do things that we shouldn't do. Just that like reflective moment of let's put ourselves in their shoes. Are we doing what we say we believe? Like, are we living this way? Have you had that?
100. So as Christians, we trust God in our salvation. Yet it's very frequent when we don't trust him in our day-to-day lives. And that's including parenting.
Mhm.
That's including marriage. That's including finances. So that's something that, again, I can totally relate to. I would call it get in a mode of work first, pray second. When it's like, whoa, Danny, take a step back. Hey, go pray first and then go be silent and get to work as well. But yes, I so relate to that. And it's a daily challenge and something that I'm trying to be more and more cognizant of.
I want to encourage you, man. I love that you're thinking start them early in this.
Yeah.
It just gets sweeter.
Yeah.
Of course, everyone's kids are different in their timing. You're not saving the kid. God is. Jesus is the one that's doing the difference.
Yeah.
But as a dad, as you are raising your kids to learn certain things and they are catching on more and more, that is a sweet return. That return on investment is priceless.
Definitely.
So continue to invest in that way, my friend.
Right. I think it's a book, Who Not How. And I think you can apply that principle in many stages of your life, both from a Christian, it's who is leading me as opposed to how am I going about doing this? And you could pivot it back to real estate as well. Who, not how. So sometimes it is go and find that right person who is experienced, who you align with their values, who has a strong track record. Go invest with them as opposed to figuring out how to buy the property the right way, renovate it the right way, manage it the right way, sell it at the right price point. So I'd say that's just a tidbit that I try and always remember is that who, not how principle and how many areas of your life that it can be applied in.
I have not heard that in regards to the spiritual who, Jesus, not how, like you trying to figure it out. Thank you. Good one.
Yeah, certainly.
I love that book, by the way. And I've mentioned that on this podcast before, but that book and that mindset is life-changing if you're still, and it's not just limited to work. It's just a whole mindset of solving problems.
And when you really take a moment to reflect, you will see that who, not how is in more areas of your life than you actually think. Like at first I thought it was kind of like cliche. Okay, who, not how. But then you reflect back and you're like, okay, nope. I agree with it.
Another opportunity. I could use this.
Yeah, exactly.
Danny, we're getting toward the end, but I know you're someone that has been intentional about resources on improving these 5 Fs. You've mentioned a few podcasts that you're listening to, maybe some books. Who, not how, obviously, is another one. Could you give us some things that have really moved the needle in your life or are still moving the needle in your life in regards to development, growth, fatherhood, etc.?
Sure. I'd start off with someone asked me, Dan, if you had one book recommendation, single-handedly, I'd say the Bible. It's something that I think I do every single morning, and that's a playbook of how I want to live my life. From a podcast standpoint, outside of this podcast, obviously, there's a podcast called Dad Tired.
Yes.
And it is a just conversation around parenting at any stage of your life and really going back to that intentional parenting. So that's during my Monday morning workout, I have Dad Tired on regularly. So those are the 2 resources that I'd highly recommend.
Cool.
Yeah.
Danny, thanks for joining today. We're going to wrap up.
Great.
I really feel like our values are so aligned. And I hope that if you're listening today, you're hearing, what are Kenny and Danny doing that is important? And what am I doing that's important? And are there things that I can start implementing now? That's why I feel like this podcast is hopefully so helpful, is there's things that we can do now to make a difference instead of just tucking this one away and I'll do it one day. I challenge our audience today, pick one thing that we heard today and implement. Danny, I really appreciate the 3-year vision, the 1-year vision. That whole thing, I think that's one of mine today, is going to be like, get that mapped out a little bit more. If you haven't done that already yet, folks, I would encourage that. Danny, if our audience wanted to follow what you're doing, you mentioned LinkedIn. What are some things that they can do to keep track of what you're up to?
Yeah, I recommend that you go follow me, add me on LinkedIn, just Danny Baylis. And this really is not an empty offer. I genuinely enjoy helping people get centered on their identity, creating that 3-year vision for their life, both from a family standpoint as well as a real estate standpoint as well. So a big believer, 15, 20-minute conversation, never hurt anyone. Would love to connect with you all following this podcast and continue the conversation.
Thanks, Danny. Take care, brother.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers Podcast. If you liked this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.